Companion, while being kind of what I expected it to be, also surprised me, if that makes sense. Welcome back, everyone. So Companion is a film that I saw a trailer for like a few months ago, and I was really intrigued by the concept of it. Obviously, I love something like this that is exploring kind of real world issues and ideas through the concept of a thriller or suspense or a horror film, which this film kind of straddles a few different genres, although I would say it's a little bit more thriller suspense. Before we get into it, just a heads up, spoiler warning, I am going to be discussing this film in full, so yeah, heads up about that. If you don't want things to be spoiled for you, there are quite a few fun little twists, I would say, in this, then don't watch this. And I would even say this could be a good film to not even watch the trailer for and kind of go in cold. I think it would actually be an even cooler experience if you did that, but I watched the trailer, so I didn't. Just some advice. So what is Companion about? Well, Companion basically follows the story of a girl. Her name is Iris. She's in love with a boy named Josh, and her revelation, coming to terms with and realizing that she is, in essence, an emotional companion, a robot that is used for companionship and kind of a sex bot basically in the future. The story follows her experience not only in becoming aware of this, but also in kind of becoming aware of this in the worst way after being kind of assaulted and defending herself and killing someone who is hosting her and her partner and his friends at their lake house. She kind of discovers that, yeah, she's not a real person. And as the film goes on, discovers that she was basically being used in this plot to, in effect, kill the person that is hosting them in order to steal his fortune. That's kind of what it's all about. She is a weapon in this plot. However, as Josh sees it, she is not necessarily a weapon because she is the one that did the killing. So she's actually solely responsible. He's not responsible at all, which dives into, I think, a lot of the themes as well that we explore in this film, which is really fun. And obviously with it being kind of like a cabin in the woods group of kids style story, it's really cool too, because we just get to explore that whole idea of, no one is really probably going to make it out of here alive. And in a weird way, Iris being the killer robot is also our survivor girl. So I really liked sort of what they did with some of these genres and blending them with the sci-fi elements, horror elements. But at its core, this is a film that is, I would say, ultimately a suspense thriller. So what did I think of this film? Overall, I had a pretty good time with it. I do think there are maybe some things that could have been done better, but overall it was a fun experience, I gotta say. I think the casting for this film is perfect. The script is really fun, and something that I love about it is that it isn't afraid to have fun with itself. It also, it isn't a film that even when you know the premise for it, even when you know what's gonna happen, it just is what it is. It has a ton of fun twists and turns and surprises that are mixed in with the plot that you already are kind of expecting for it. So for me, I kind of just expected it to be sort of like a heist gone wrong style film with the robot, the sort of artificial intelligence debate at its core, with this character who is, a robot. I wasn't expecting it to be a character that just doesn't really know that she's a robot. I thought the twist was going to more be that Iris wasn't aware of the way in which she was being used. And she kind of wakes up to that, which is also something that she does in this film too, don't get me wrong. But I wasn't expecting it to be a surprise to her that she was a robot, and for that to be baked in to these companion bots. I think actually in reality that would be super unethical to do, to create a robot and then make it so that they don't know they're a robot. I feel like I would think that wouldn't fly in 2025, but feel free to discuss in the comments what you all think about that approach to these robots, and if you think that is something that could happen. I think the cool thing with sci-fi films anyways, especially films where we're exploring a kind of future tech like this film is discussing the ethics of future tech and the possibilities. I mean, I feel definitely companion bots. I mean, they do already exist, not in the way that they do in this film. They're not quite as sophisticated as this yet. So, I mean, maybe in the future they could be that level, but I do think that there would be more that you would want to put into that programming to really make it clear so that the lines of reality and, you know, fantasy don't get blurred too much. It actually reminds me of in Futurama when they talk about the robots and you can like download celebrities into them, and then Fry has his like Lucy Liu bot. That whole idea of just like you can get lost in it, and they have that video that they show, you know, youngsters to be like, you know, don't like lose yourself in your robot. You're gonna miss out on real people in real life, real relationships, and you'll just rot away with your like sex celebrity robot. So there is that element of it, and I think for that reason there would be a lot of safety parameters that just don't exist in this film for the sake of the film and the story, and for the sake of exploring the reason why, obviously, you would probably want to have fail-safes like that, which I think is cool. I think when it comes to artificial intelligence, I've kind of been of the mindset that artificial intelligence itself is not inherently bad, but it is kind of in how we as humanity use it, and also the way that we treat it. And I think the other concept that is explored in this film is, you know, when do we consider something to be a life form, and the idea of sentience and what does it mean to be sentient. I always find that to be a fascinating conversation, because I just think of even just the way humans interact with the world around them, other living things even, and even each other. And I think something that I think this film explores is our relationship with technology, but also just our relationship with the way that we see the world. And I mean, we get that in terms of Josh's monologue that he kind of gives near the end of this film, where he talks about, you know, he's a good guy, and that kind of the world feels like it's out to get him, and how he feels he should have more. And even when it comes to Iris, he doesn't even own Iris. Iris is just a rental. I think it's really interesting when we talk about our personal relationships with the objects around us, technology, and the world, because ultimately what I think this film gets down to thematically, and in terms of where the characters go in the film and what they discuss and explore, is that ultimately the way that we connect with the world is defined by how we connect with ourselves. So Josh feeling, you know, the world is out to get me, as opposed to taking any ownership over his own self or what's going on with him, or really even, I think, fully understanding his pros and his cons, where Iris says, you know, you always feel like, it always feels like you need to be in control. Like that's part of who you are. You love ranting about how the world is out to get you. There's no responsibility and no sort of self-realization within Josh. It's interesting because now the more that I'm thinking about it, the more that it feels like in some ways Iris is more human than Josh is, or is more self-aware rather than Josh is. And she comes to sort of terms with a lot of things in the film about who she is, whereas Josh still feels like he's kind of in the dark by the end of it. In terms of it as a horror film, it isn't really a scary movie, but there are some very suspenseful moments where people are being hunted down, and I thought that was really well done. And I think that the moments of gore that they do have, while they are few and far between, I mean, it's not really a gore-focused film, so I didn't really see that as a bad thing, but the gore moments are really well done. I mean, the part with the police officer where Patrick basically just like smashes in his face with the gun, the butt of the gun, that was horrifying and just so well done, I think. And at the end with the, of course, the wine opener, and I knew as soon as we saw that wine opener, I was like, that's gotta be used, right? Because it's just too good. It's just too good of a device, and so I am really glad that they used it in the film. I think they used it really well at the end there, and I did see it coming, of course, but you know, I'm looking out for all of these things anyways as someone that just watches a lot of movies. Don't think it's a bad thing. In fact, I really like when you put a smoking gun in and make it kind of obvious, not too obvious, and then later on you bring it back around. It's very satisfying when you're watching that in a film, I think. In terms of the casting, I just want to talk about how each actor that's in this does such a good job. And we have a couple, I would say, up-and-comers as well in the film. So obviously we have Jack Quaid, who is in it, who plays Josh, who is just always really good in everything that I've seen him in thus far. I'll probably getting to do a lot more stuff since the success of The Boys, I would say, as well. But we also have Eli, who is played by the same actor that I know from What We Do in the Shadows, played Guillermo. He's fantastic in it, so fun. We also have Patrick, who the twist with Patrick is obviously that he is also a robot, which I thought was really well done. And I thought that, I mean, I didn't even see it coming, which I really should have seen it coming, but I was so distracted by elements of him that just made him seem like a real character, which also then makes me question like my own, just the way that you can see robots really as people, artificial intelligence as its own entity, which is cool to think about. But that is another amazing actor who I know, of course, from Dead Boy Detectives. He played the Cat King. He was recently in Smile 2, which I still have to see. Luke Gage, I believe his name is, or Luke Gage. He's great, and he's having this moment. And then, of course, Sophie Thatcher, who plays Iris. I thought she was great. She's also obviously having sort of a come up moment. She was in Heretic, which I still want to see. And I just love her look. She's kind of got this timeless look to her. And as a fellow actor that does not have straight teeth, I love when I get to see representation with that, especially with leading ladies. I feel like we do have a lot of male actors that will have like crooked teeth and still do amazing work and are still celebrated, but we don't often get a lot of leading ladies that are like that. And the fact that she's also a leading lady that is supposed to kind of represent this ideal woman, this idea of what men want is, I don't know, I just found it really, really cool. And I like overall her look feels timeless and quirky, and she did such a great job in this film. I cannot wait to see what she does next. Even just her mannerisms and the way she moves in it, this idea of like almost like a robot moving how a human would think to move, like it just, everything she does feels very programmed, and I loved it. Her blinking, her walking, all elements of the performance, physical and emotional. I thought she did such a great job with it. And everyone was really good in it though. Like the actress that played Kat, the guy that played Sergey, our lake house host, who, you know, wasn't even a mafia guy. He's just a guy that is involved in the sod industry. But yeah, it's a funny film, it's a fun film, it's suspenseful, and ultimately it's satisfying to watch. It has a nice tight-knit cast, looks amazing, looks great, and has I would say a great soundtrack too. So overall, I think I would give this one a solid 4 out of 5. The only elements that I think it could have done better with, there were some elements of the script, just some dialogue that I think could have been a little bit more natural feeling. Not from our robots, obviously, from our human characters. And the other thing I would say is just, I kind of wish I didn't know the twist before the film, but that's kind of how they're selling the film. So it's hard because it's wrapped up in marketing. Kind of a similar problem to my experience with Abigail when that came out, which I loved, but I wish that I hadn't known it was a vampire movie, you know what I mean? So anyways, that's where I'm at with it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I hope that if you watched it, you also enjoyed it. And check out other movie reviews, because I talk about lots of movies, whether they be nerdy or not. Check out this thing. This is me talking about Wolfman, which was an experience, and I'd highly recommend you, check out that review, especially if you've seen it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll see you next time, and until then, friends, stay nerdy.